On a frozen Christmas Eve night, 12 U.S. Navy SEALs were abandoned behind enemy lines, declared unrecoverable, by command. One woman, a former combat medic forced into early medical retirement, heard the classified message by accident. She wasn't on duty. She wasn't authorized. She wasn't even supposed to be anywhere near the base. But when she learned that an entire SEAL team was being left to die, she broke every rule, stole time itself, and reached them in 90 seconds, saving all 12 men with nothing but a snowstorm, a rope harness, and the ghost of the brother she once lost. Before we begin, the narrator asks the viewer where they're watching from today, because stories like this feel different when you listen from your kitchen, a bus seat, your bed, or a quiet room where no one knows what you carry inside. And before the story unfolds, the narrator gently reminds the viewer to subscribe, because the world forgets its silent heroes far too easily, and tonight's story refuses to let that happen. Blood streaked across the white snow as Petty Officer Nolan Briggs clawed forward, gasping through cracked ribs. A flare hissed above him, its red glow painting the broken faces of 11 other SEALs scattered across the ridge. Frost was already forming across their gear. Their breaths were short, shallow, the kind of breathing men give when they are preparing for the end. And in the command tent 20 miles away, someone whispered the words that sealed their fate. "They're done. The storm makes extraction impossible. We call it." A silence followed, thick, suffocating, and merciless. A voice trembled in response, raw with disbelief. "You're leaving them, on Christmas Eve." The room didn't answer. But one heartbeat later, someone moved fast, defiant, unstoppable. And that's where her story begins. Her name was Lieutenant Mara Ellsworth, though everyone on the base still called her Med Mara, as if the title clung to her even though the uniform no longer did. She stood at the entrance of the command tent, her breath shaking in the cold, her hands still marked with faint scars from a life she had not fully escaped. She wore no rank, no weapon, no clearance badge anymore. Just a heavy jacket and the uneasy stillness of someone who knew too much about loss. The wind pushed snow against the canvas behind her, yet the chill that spread through the tent came from something else entirely. The sight of a woman who had once saved more bodies than she could count and failed to save one she could never forget. Her eyes locked onto the digital screen showing the SEAL's final coordinates. She didn't blink. She didn't breathe. And she didn't accept what she heard. Mara Ellsworth had returned to this remote Arctic station only 2 weeks earlier, not as a soldier, but as a medic on a civilian disaster relief rotation. Her legs still carried the surgical scars from the blast that ended her military career, though she rarely mentioned the pain. She walked with the slightest hitch, but her eyes carried something heavier than any limp, the memory of the brother who never walked back home. Corporal Jonah Ellsworth, her twin, her mirror, her anchor. He died 3 years earlier in a failed extraction that haunted military circles for months. An order delayed by 90 seconds cost his team their lives. 90 seconds. A sliver of time that could either save a man or bury him forever. Mara replayed those 90 seconds every night. She carried them like frost on the inside of her ribs. Even now, when the cold wind touched her skin, she felt the echo of that night, the weight of the promise she never got to keep. "Never again," she used to whisper into her pillow. And now, hearing a commander casually surrender 12 men to the same fate, it felt like the universe had opened an old wound and demanded she bleed through it again. The officers around the table pretended not to see her. Too much guilt in their eyes, too much pride in their voices. They spoke in clipped phrases, calculations, risk assessments, policy citations, as if reducing human lives to bullet points could soften what they were about to do. Mara stood unmoving, hands trembling inside her jacket pockets. A technician muttered, "Storm's too heavy." Extraction window closed. Another added, "Protocol states," and Mara interrupted not with words, but with the smallest shift of her posture. A straightening of her spine. A slow inhale. Silence spread around the room like wildfire. Everyone felt the shift, the invisible ripple of moral resistance that didn't need to be loud to be powerful. Her presence was a quiet accusation. "You know this is wrong." Across the tent, a young soldier looked at her with something like hope, as if wanting someone, anyone, to challenge the decision, but no one else spoke. That was the worst part. The quiet acceptance. The deadly compliance. The kind of silence that kills teams. The senior commander, Captain Rourke, stiffened. He wasn't an unkind man, but he was a man who feared failure more than he feared being wrong. His jaw locked when he realized Mara wasn't moving. "You're not part of this anymore," he said sharply. But she didn't step back. Instead, her gaze shifted to the screen showing the SEAL team's vitals, blinking yellow, turning orange, threatening red. She noticed something no one else had. Their core temperatures were dropping too fast for them to remain conscious. They had minutes before the cold stole their ability to call for help. Minutes. Not hours. Not until morning. And certainly not enough time to delay extraction. "You already lost them," Rourke muttered. "Don't make this harder." But Mara saw something else on the screen, an anomaly in the storm pattern. A tiny break, a narrow wind tunnel, a 90-second window. Her breath caught. 90 seconds. The universe was offering her the time she never got years ago, and she would not waste it. Behind the radio station wall, someone shifted. Mara didn't see him, but she felt it, the subtle presence of a person torn between orders and conscience. Chief Petty Officer Elias Ward. A man who had served with Mara and owed his life to her brother. Though no one knew it yet, he was about to break a rule that could cost him his career. Humanity over hierarchy. Honor over obedience. Silent loyalty, the invisible kind. Captain Rourke turned away, signaling that the conversation was over. Others followed, eager to escape the weight of the decision they had cemented. But Mara stepped forward. She touched the table edge, her fingers pressing white against the wood. Her pulse raced, but her voice, when it finally came, was barely above a whisper. "You're leaving them like you left my brother." A tremor moved through the tent. Someone swallowed hard. Someone else looked away. No one responded. Her next words were soft but carried the force of a winter storm. "Honor doesn't clock out on Christmas Eve." It was not a threat, not a plea, just truth, uncompromising and unafraid. When Captain Rourke signed the abandonment order, the pen tip clicked with the coldness of a coffin lid. Mara didn't think. She moved. One fluid motion, fast, instinctive, defiant. She grabbed the thermal rescue pack, slung it over her shoulder, and walked straight toward the exit. Someone grabbed her arm. She didn't look back. She simply pulled free, leaving his hand grasping only air and his pride bruised beneath the surface. "Ellsworth, stand down." She kept walking. Ellsworth. But she was done listening. She crossed the threshold into the storm. And the storm welcomed her like an old enemy. The cold hit her in the face with the violence of 1,000 needles. The wind howled against her bones. Snow tore sideways, slicing visibility to nothing more than a blur of white. But she pressed forward. The landscape felt both familiar and foreign. Shadows of old missions echoing in each gust. Her breath crystallized instantly, forming icy ghosts that vanished the moment they appeared. Her injured leg burned. Her lungs screamed. Her heart refused to slow. She whispered her brother's name, feeling him in the wind, urging her forward. Jonah had always been the reckless one. The one who would run into a storm if someone needed him. Tonight she was both of them. Halfway down the ridge, she heard footsteps crunching behind her. Heavy boots, purposeful strides. For a split second she thought Rourke had sent MPs to drag her back. She turned. It was Elias Ward. No words, no salutes. Just a quiet nod and the extension of a rope harness. A gesture that said everything. "You don't have to do this alone. I didn't save your brother, but I can help save these men." Orders be damned. She accepted the harness with shaking hands. A fragile alliance forged in silence. As Elias secured the line around her waist, he murmured, not as a command, not as a warning, but as an oath. "Some orders protect careers. Others protect lives. Pick the ones you can live with." She didn't answer. Her eyes already held the answer. Together they descended into the ravine. The storm whipped harder, as if the earth itself demanded the SEALs remain lost in it. Snow swallowed their legs, freezing them to the mid-shin. Their breaths grew ragged. But then, through the blur, Mara saw shapes on the ground. 12 men, barely moving, blue lips, white fingertips, bodies curled inward like broken wings. She dropped to her knees beside them. Her voice cracked, raw with urgency. "You're not dying here. Not tonight." Her hands flew across their gear, checking pulses, stabilizing airways, lifting chins, clearing frosted masks. The storm roared, but her mind was silent, focused, unwavering. This wasn't chaos. This was home. Saving people had always been her native language. Once Elias deployed the extraction beacon, illegally, without clearance. The beacon found the narrow air pocket Mara had spotted earlier. A chopper crew, unaware of the political battle unfolding at base, saw the signal and responded. Mara hooked each SEAL into the thermal support harness, her fingers numb, her breath dissolving into clouds of pain and determination. 12 men. 12 cables. 12 lives the military had given up on. Each connection was a small act of rebellion, a declaration of faith, a promise kept for her brother. As the final cable locked, Mara whispered, voice cracking through frozen lips, "If the world abandons you, I won't." Only Elias heard it. Only he understood its weight. The chopper wings sliced through the storm, descending recklessly, desperately, impossibly. The pilot didn't question who activated the beacon, didn't ask why command had forbidden extraction, didn't stop to consider consequences. He saw lives. He saved lives. 90 heart-pounding, bone-shaking seconds, 12 SEALs were lifted into the sky like resurrected shadows. Elias watched them rise. Mara dropped to the snow, her body finally giving in, her breath a trembling rasp of exhaustion. She had no idea if she would survive the trek back. But she knew the 12 men she saved would. And that was enough. When the chopper returned to base, carrying the 12 men command had declared unsalvageable, the station erupted in disbelief. The wounded SEALs, frostbitten but alive, were carried inside. Whispers spread, stares multiplied. Questions formed faster than answers could be given. How did they survive? Who found them? Who deployed the beacon? And then the first rescued SEAL pointed at Mara, who had just limped through the gate with Elias beside her. The SEAL's voice cracked like an oath made of broken glass and gratitude. "She saved us, she saved all of us." The base grew silent. Not from guilt. Not from shock, but from awe. The kind of awe that comes only when dignity triumphs over authority. Captain Rourke stepped forward, jaw locked, pride crushed beneath responsibility. But before he could speak, something happened that no one expected. Every soldier in the room, every rank, every age, every witness, stood at attention. Not for Rourke. Not for the chain of command. For her. For Mara Ellsworth. For the woman who spat on orders and saved 12 men in 90 seconds. A line formed, officers, medics, engineers, rookies, each offering a nod, a hand over the heart, or a whispered, "Thank you." No applause, no cheering, just quiet, powerful respect. The kind that rearranges a room. The kind that exposes truth. One of the rescued SEALs, still trembling from cold and adrenaline, looked at Mara with tears in his eyes and whispered, "Heroes don't wait for permission." The words struck everyone in the room, even those who once doubted her. Especially those who did. Later that night, after the medical chaos settled and the storm softened into a gentle snowfall, Mara stepped outside to breathe the cold air. Elias joined her. The base lights glowed behind them, casting halos on the snow. Somewhere in the barracks, 12 men were alive, because one woman refused to surrender to fear, rank, or protocol. She looked up at the stars, soft, faint, flickering like distant memories. For the first time in years, she didn't feel her brother's absence like a blade. She felt him standing beside her. Proud, free, finally at peace. And so the narrator closes this story with a quiet truth. Sometimes the greatest acts of heroism are the ones no one was supposed to see. Sometimes the strongest warriors are the ones who carry old wounds but keep walking anyway. And sometimes the world needs a reminder that silent dignity is stronger than fear, stronger than orders, and stronger than any storm. Where are you watching from tonight? And if stories of real courage, unseen sacrifice, and unshakable honor mean something to you, subscribe, share your thoughts, and never forget the people who fight battles the world never sees.